Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, the new live engagement program. Virtual is here to stay. My name is Tyler Davidson. I'm Vice President and Chief Content Director for Meetings Today, and I'm excited to welcome you to our program today. Our webinars cover a variety of topics that are all very important to the meetings industry, so we hope you'll join us for them all. And we also offer a number of newsletters, in addition, of course, to our monthly magazine. And then be sure to check us out on the web at meetingstoday.com. Today's webinar is worth 1 clock hour of credit in the strategic planning domain toward the CMP application through the Events Industry Council. To receive credit for attending this webinar, you must be present for the full hour. Upon completion of the webinar, you will be taken to a brief survey from CVent and then to the related Meetings Today Webinar Club page to obtain your credit. We encourage you to ask questions during the presentation. You may submit your questions at any time by typing your question in the Q&A area at the bottom of the screen. And should you experience any technical difficulties, please send a message in or call 800-553-8878. Before we get started with today's content, I want to make sure everyone is aware of another great upcoming webinar this month. Join us for must-know contract clauses on August 25th. It's an extension of last week's webinar with a noted industry attorney, Joshua Grimes. So we hope you can join us for that. Also on our website, you will find a vault of information from past webinars, including this one, available for you to view at any time. Visit meetingstoday.com/webinars to learn more about these events, or look under the webinars navigation tab on the website and click on demand webinars in the drop down menu so you can watch now. Now I would like to introduce today's speaker. Julie Haddix is the Senior Director, Industry Solutions for CVent Incorporated. She has worked for CVent for over 13 years and helped to build the company's enterprise sales and marketing divisions, including its approach to strategic meetings management. Julie has also been a part of the planning team for CVent Connect, CVent's annual user conference, leading the event marketing and content development efforts. In her current role, she oversees strategic content direction for the event marketing and management platform. Julie graduated from the McIntire School of Business at the University of Virginia with a BS in commerce and concentrations in marketing and management. She lives in Westchester County, New York with her husband, 3-year-old son, and their new baby girl. Congratulations. And with that, I'd like to hand things off to the speaker. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much, Tyler, and thank you to Meetings Today for having us. I want to talk today about our new live engagement program. And when we say virtual is here to stay, I know for a lot of event planners, that's a scary topic. But what we're really going to talk about is how virtual has changed the concept of live engagement and how it will impact events going forward, not just your hybrid event strategy, but your total event program, and even how to think about virtual within the context of in-person events. So, when you think about what the world used to look like, these are meetings that hopefully some of us have started to see again, or the ballrooms, we're starting to see them again. But this was definitely the reality of 2019. Then the pandemic hit and all of our events went online, and we've all become very familiar with the coffee and earbuds and our computer screens, or more likely, as was in my case, the coffee, the earbuds, the computer screen, and the kids. And what really happened is, when you think about that, bringing events online was an event channel digitization. And when you look at what happened in 2019 and into 2020 out of 2019, is COVID has speeded up the adoption of digital technologies by several years. And these changes are going to be here for the long haul. And that's from research that McKinsey did at the end of last year. And when you look specifically into studies done by different meetings and events groups, 78% of planners were going virtual as of the end of 2020. When you look at registration of virtual events, there's a 6 to 10x increase. And then as we think about the future, still 76% of planners are anticipating that they're going to need to provide virtual alternatives. So all of these trends show the impact that virtual had on us after everything we went through in 2020, and also how it's here to stay. And so what we're really seeing now is this convergence. Pre-pandemic, you had in-person events, you had webinars, and you had video content, and they were three mutually exclusive channels. Now these channels are coming together to create a single live engagement channel. And so that's what we're really going to talk about today, is the state of virtual and event technology trends, how this new live engagement channel is impacting to the return of in-person, and what this means in our new era of live engagement. So let's start here just a bit with the state of virtual, and virtual is here to stay. When we did some research at the beginning of this year with Forrester, we asked planners and marketers, which types of external events does your organization plan on hosting post-pandemic? And what you can see here is there's not a clear leader in the event format. You have most people saying that they're going to be hosting a combination of in-person, hybrid, and virtual to make up their total event program. So what that really means when you think about it is that virtual events are not replacing in-person events. What they're actually replacing and impacting the most is the webinar. And additionally, the research we showed that we did with Forrester showed that 79% of people in our survey admitted that most of their organizations' pre-pandemic virtual events were simply webinars. And the problem with webinars is that they really are now events. I'm sure if you've tuned into meetings today, I know they're changing their webinar strategy constantly coming out of the pandemic, as we all are. And so when you think of virtual events versus webinars of the past, you're talking about multi-modal engagement, live streaming, video on demand, networking and interactivity, sponsor activation, deeper engagement. I hope you're all thinking about questions you want to ask me, or maybe typing some things in the chat, because I definitely have them open to watch anything coming in, so that as I'm talking, I can react and engage with you. And that's something that I don't think we were great at doing in a pre-pandemic webinar. And all of this is being transformed and changing faster because of the trends that we're seeing in event technology. One of those trends is that we have the younger generations entering the workforce, and those younger generations are video natives. It's no longer just about watching video through YouTube, which pretty much, as you see in this little chart, almost everybody has done. But those new generations are native to TikTok. They're very active on Twitter and Instagram, and probably even less so than the rest of us on even Facebook and some of the social media channels that have been around longer. And so that is driving changes. Then you have things like virtual cameras and augmented reality that are coming into the events world. You see in this picture, a speaker standing on an augmented reality stage. How do we bring this in to our live events and our live engagement, our virtual events? And live stream production is just exploding. These companies that probably most of us had never heard of before 2020, and now they are part of the event planners conversation of StreamYard versus Social Live, and what's your production and streaming capabilities. These conversations that we never had before are now part of our daily jargon in planning our events, which brings us to then how we want to deliver that stream. And it's not just about delivering that stream into a video platform, but it's about creating engagement and effective layouts, and really even scaling the two-way interactivity. And when you talk about two-way interactivity, that means building community through your video conferencing, having the ability to do things like speed networking in a virtual environment, being able to have video discussions and join in on conversations with people you're interacting with in a virtual environment, finding those discussion topics that are interesting to you and jumping in when you can see who else is already in that discussion with you. And when you jump in, have those conversations face to face, be able to go in, engage, talk. And then when you're done with the conversation, say it was great meeting you and leave. Same as you would have if you're engaging in networking in an in-person environment. And which really brings us back to how we want to bring that virtual engagement that has really been the crux of the last 18 months to this return of in-person events. And I know everybody is talking about hybrid being the path forward. And hopefully a few of you on the line got to experience Cvent Connect last week in our hybrid event. It was an amazing learning experience for us. And these are just a few of the things that we really had thought about with that event. The health and safety concerns of in-person, limited corporate travel budgets, limited marketing budgets, venue capacity limitations, uncertain global travel restrictions are all reasons that we chose to do our event as a hybrid event, and that we know all of you are thinking about doing hybrid events as well. Plus, you get that expanded reach of hybrid, where you may have had back in 2019 a 2,000 person virtual event. Hopefully last year you pivoted your event to virtual and saw that increased reach and engagement. And now as you think about hybrid, you can combine the best of both worlds and see that growth and increased reach that a hybrid event can bring to your event program. So hybrid events will really allow us to level up the intimacy of in-person and offer the thought leadership content to as broad an audience as we can. And this quote is from an event operations director at a marketing intelligence agency. But what we want to really make sure as we're thinking about hybrid and virtual engagement is what hybrid is not. And what hybrid is not is that camera at the top that's kind of voyeuristically looking in on the in-person event. What you want to think about is your production and the close-up effect, so that you're really bringing your audience into the room. You're thinking about your camera angles and thinking about how that stream and that video is going to be consumed in a virtual environment. Not just what is your stage setting for your in-person, but how does the stage setting allow for your camera to move around, get those close-up shots, and give that good view to your virtual audience. And so what we're trying to create is that one event with two experiences. And what I always refer back to when I think about this is a sporting event. We have all been a part of the ultimate hybrid event. When you think about a football game or a baseball game or a soccer game, wherever your sport of choice, when you go to that event in person, there is that experience of being there in person. Yes, it's all about the connections, the people, the sitting next to the fans, being a part, cheering, the same way an in-person event is about the connections, the people, experiencing that in person. But there's also that flip side. There is that virtual experience of watching the game on TV, where you are made to feel a part of it. You're made to feel a part of the game through the broadcasters, the conversations, the camera angles, and you know that you're a part of something larger, even when you're watching that event from your couch. You should be thinking about how to create that same engaging experience with your hybrid events. That yes, you want to create that ultimate in-person event, but you also want to create that fandom and that experience that draws your virtual attendees in as well. And so really the key things to think about on that broadcast level and that production level is your lighting, your camera, your sound, and how that live stream is getting into production. So up level it, make sure you have quality lighting, quality cameras, quality sound, quality live stream production to do a hybrid event, and that you're creating engaging opportunities for your audience with shared experiences. You want to be able to bridge the gap between your in-person attendees and your virtual attendees. You can do this through things like polling or audience Q&A, or even leveraging a mobile app and web experience, the same content that can be consumed from your phone or on your computer at the same time, whether you're on site or virtual. And you really do that through a single technology solution. Again, the same content, the same event and attendee website to reference to guide you through the event, no matter where you are. But I also want to point out that there is no one size fits all for hybrid events. Hybrid events run on a spectrum. They run from a focus on the virtual down to a focus on in-person and anywhere in between. I say that I think a lot of us are thinking about hybrid as having to run the Cadillac of hybrid, which is this full red one in the middle, the one event with two very unique experiences from start to finish. This is what we did last week at Cvent Connect. And I say it's the Cadillac because it's hard. You do have to run that separate in-person agenda, that separate virtual agenda, have staffing plans, have audio-visual plans, have networking plans, as if you were running both a virtual event and a hybrid event. But we know that not everyone can do that, whether it be from a budgetary or staff standpoint, but also not every event needs that level of complexity. You may have a smaller half-day event that really all you need is to live stream the content from beginning to end so that you are bringing your virtual attendees into the room for a discussion. Or you may really want to focus on that in-person event, that in-person user conference, that in-person networking event. But you're going to go ahead and record all of the content. You're going to capture that content and make it available on demand virtually later, either through just on-demand access or by rebroadcasting it in a separate virtual event. So all these things you need to keep in mind, but also know that you can find where you fit on the spectrum of hybrid, which is going to bring us into this era of live engagement. And this era of live engagement is when you're bringing together that virtual, in-person, and on-demand engagement with your content. It's all about content activation, where you're going to be able to extend the reach of your content, increase the monetization opportunities, make sure that your message is reaching the largest audience possible. And you're able to create the single source of truth for that live engagement, whether somebody's going on your website, taking a feedback survey, tracking their attendance, seeing which appointments they attend in person or online, capturing leads, monitoring their activity in your event app, their check-in, their registration, all of this attendee journey data across your event, whether it's virtual or in person, needs to get into that single attendee activity source so that you can actually activate that data, have an engagement score to see who was the most engaged members of your team, audience members, whether they were virtual or in person, being able to dynamically segment your audience, look at analytics, share this information with your marketing automation system or other tools through API access. So again, you see who was the most engaged with your event. And through technology, you can create this engagement score that you look at different activities that someone may attend. And again, these activities are things that can be done in person, such as a physical registration check-in or virtual, logging into your virtual event platform. All of this engagement can go together to create an engagement score to show you who is the most engaged with your event. And what you might find surprising is there's an automatic assumption that your in-person attendees are going to be your most engaged, but a virtual attendee can be very engaged with your event. They can go through and view all of your content, find all those virtual networking opportunities, ask questions, participate in chat, and they actually might be more engaged than somebody who does come to your on-site event in person, but only attends your general sessions. And so it really gives you that feedback and quantitative data to know how both your virtual and in-person events are performing through dynamic data. You can also have gamification that crosses the boundaries of in-person and virtual attendance to really encourage that joint participation in your event. And so what you see is these virtual elements redefining what we think of as the event. The constraints of in-person no longer apply to our events. And what this really means is we no longer need to provide 10 hours of programming. You can shorten your agenda. One thing that I found really interesting that we saw last week at Cvent Connect is because we had a virtual event, we heard from some of our attendees that they just weren't up for that morning session, but they really wanted to attend. So they signed in from on their computer in their hotel room, had their breakfast, had their coffee, and then came down later to participate in the networking events in person. When you think about virtual, the max daily attention span is really 1 to 3 hours. So how can you get all of your content programming into that time and really maximize your in-person event around what we know in-person to be best for? Networking, face-to-face conversations, sales meetings, hands-on product training, instead of just having somebody sit in a ballroom to hear the content that they could consume online. We're also seeing this become an evolution of year-round live engagement programs where your content is actually available on an ongoing basis. I've heard some concepts from even associations looking to do year-round virtual trade shows where their sponsors can have a booth live for the year and engage and gather leads and engage with potential buyers in an ongoing basis instead of just one point in time, or that connection to your and ability to access your content throughout the entire year, but really making sure you have the metrics to track that on the back end. But why now for this year-round engagement? It's because of the technology transformations, the ability for scalability, the geographic restrictions that we see, and of course, the attendee availability. When you think about a customer journey, if you're only looking at the in-person live options, that journey is limited. But when you expand the role of live to all of these virtual options and in-person options, there's a complete shift in your ability to engage with your customers, your prospects, your members over an entire year and over the course of their entire life cycle with you. And this is what is really helping to drive a change in the marketing flywheel as you have deeper ways to engage with your event attendees and make them a part of your larger marketing programs. And so that's where we come up with that year-round engagement view of events being the hub of a year-round engagement program. Have them find all of your events, not just a single event. It's about your total event program, whether it's virtual, in-person, or hybrid, making sure your members, your prospects, your customers, your employees can always find the events that are relevant to them, see their history, network with relevant connections, have a global content library, discussion boards, and the ability to have consistent and personalized experiences with all of your events. But you might be sitting back there and now saying, so this is great, but how do I do this with my existing team? My team was previously built to manage our in-person programs. We quickly shifted to virtual programs. We might still be figuring out how we continue to support virtual events and also get back to in-person. And now you're talking about this total event program, 365 days of the year. How do we do that? Pre-pandemic, we definitely saw that 66% of events were executed as independent entities, independent of larger marketing campaigns. And 59% of respondents, again, going back to our Forrester survey from earlier this year, could not track ROI consistently or derive a value at all. So this has really led to an evolving partnership between event planners and marketers. And this is a quote from one of our senior event managers here at Cvent, Paulina, who said, in this virtual environment, meetings and events are more intertwined to marketing operations than ever. They're providing insight and guidance on everything from desired data flows from events to our CRM systems and communication strategy to marketing our tech stack integrations and more. The expansion of virtual and hybrid has redefined how planners track and measure event performance and how we utilize data such as engagement metrics to inform ROI and support our marketing goals. Truthfully, we wouldn't have gotten through the last 12 months if we didn't maximize these partnerships with those outside of our team, and those relationships will continue long term. So this is really what Paulina is really saying is that we've entered into a new event landscape. Corporations' average B2B marketing budget, about 24% is spent on events. And events are the most important demand gen activity when you talk to marketing departments. They're also the best way to deepen relationships with customers. So when you think about this, marketing and events should always have been working hand in hand. And now it's more important than ever that we start to invest in maturing event management practices to really build those relationships with marketers and deepen that engagement and personalization to bring that relationship together. So again, looking at some of the results from our Forrester survey earlier this year. 46% said that marketers and event managers are now working towards common goals. Going in the right direction, but definitely we can do more. 45% said they're adjusting team makeup, workflows, and the content of day-to-day activities to be more agile in how marketing and event managers are working together. And 44% are creating a unique event experience for their event attendees. And 52%, and this is where we see there's a lot of work still to be done, we're still treating an event, regardless of its format, programmatically. All of these things show that there's a lot of work still to be done to bridge this gap between event planning and marketing and really bring our events into our marketing channels and think of events as a digital marketing activity because there is so much now online for your events. And that's really where we see that evolution of the event marketer as the owner of the live engagement channel, bringing those virtual and in-person events together, both in an individual hybrid event, but also within your total event program. We had a speaker last week at Cvent Connect say that she thinks all event planners should now go out and change their titles to experience planners, because it's not just about the logistics of an event anymore. It's about that whole attendee experience that you're creating. And whether that experience is in person, in a hotel, in a ballroom, in a restaurant, and whatever physical venue, or online, you're creating that singular experience that drives engagement through your live engagement channel. And this is really going to deepen that role of events in the customer journey. and show how powerful events are in driving a purchase decision, or driving a membership decision, or driving your employee engagement. Events are how you drive awareness, consideration, evaluation, and ultimately purchase. Or if I change this to employee engagement, how you drive awareness of your business, how they become, a candidate, how in your recruitment cycle, how they become an onboarded employee and what their employee journey looks like. Or for associations, how you attract potential members and sponsors, how they get engaged with your organization and stay and repeat and become evangelists. So you really want to look at not just your singular event, not just all of the events you manage, but how all of your events, in person, virtual, hybrid, engage with your marketing tactics. So that was a lot. I actually talked even faster. I thought I was going to be limited for time, so I flew through that. But the key takeaways here are that virtual is here to stay. Virtual events are not displacing in-person events. They're displacing the webinar. Virtual is a tailwind and not a replacement for virtual. Virtual is going to be transforming the live engagement channel. And event marketers are now more influential than ever as we think about our total event programs and bringing together all of these different event formats into all your different event types. And with that, Tyler, did we have any questions come in?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Great presentation. Learned a lot as always with your great webinar presentation skills. So a few have come in. Let's start with the first one. And this is the $1 million question here. So put on get your crystal ball out. How will virtual events change the role of the event planner?
Ooh, I think that, again, this is an I think, and virtual will definitely change. I like to use the word, and I've probably said this on a Meetings Today webinar in the past, but to producer. And event planners really need to put on that production hat. I think we often had producers in the AV world, and event producers have been around for a long time, but all event planners need to put on that producer hat, and they really need to think about how their event is being thought through and received and engaged with through all these different channels. And even if you are doing just an in-person event, having that produced, and I say just, we all know that there's no just in person, but if it's not a virtual event, if it's not a hybrid event, if it's a traditional in-person event, that event producer mentality and remembering the lessons we learned about voice, microphones, camera angles, lighting are going to make your in-person event stronger. And it's not just about relying on your AV provider to assume they're going to know what you want, but helping to push them and guide them into what you want. And so I do think that we're going to see more event planners getting, closer to their AV providers for sure. And AV providers realizing that their event planners have higher expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we wrote a story a month or so ago, just basically how the world of AV has changed just during the pandemic. And it used to be like, I'm showing up at the convention center. Who's my provider? Oh, where are you now? It's like full blown production, like you're putting on a news program.
Yes, absolutely. I say that frequently when I'm working on my content. When I was working on my content for Cvent Connect, I would start my kickoff with my speakers being like, all right, let's think about this. Are we put ourselves into the room? Are we doing a talk show? Are we doing Sports Center? Are we doing the Today Show? Or are we doing Regis and Kelly? Like, what do we want to take as our inspiration? And again, using those productions that are virtual, are hybrid events as our inspiration. we forget that so many of these TV programs have those in-person studio audiences, and they are produced to be engaging, compelling in-person events at the same time as being engaging, compelling virtual events.
Yeah, and and one tip someone gave me when I first started doing video even was just like watch the evening news and see how they cut away to things, the amount of time they spend on something, the angles they'll use for the camera. And when you start doing that, you get a whole new experience out of watching TV too.
You really do. Yeah. You have a newfound respect for everybody who's been producers for years. All these producers are like, welcome to the show. You guys finally caught up, I'm sure.
So how do you suggest, I mean, this is a whole new world, of course, and maybe planners are used to working with their organizational marketing teams for an in-person event. How is this different virtual, and how may it be different for hybrid meetings?
Yep. So definitely, as I said when I went through my presentation, understanding with your marketing team where events fit into the customer journey or the prospect journey is really important. Events are a point in time, but they're not independent of the rest of the journey. And so, knowing is this event meant to be an event that's driving awareness and we want to reach as broad of an audience as possible, or is this an event that is meant to drive a purchase decision that it maybe not be as important to obviously you always want to fill the room, but filling the room with the right people is more important than just filling the room. And understanding the goals of your event and how they relate to the larger marketing goals is really important, both from that, broad reach versus targeted reach, as well as what's the message that you want. It is, are we broadcasting our corporate level message, or are we training on a product? So understanding those marketing goals, because those are very different, is really important. And it's always been important, but I think now it's more important than ever, because those are the types of goals that are going to help you understand, should this be a virtual event? Should this be an in-person event? Or should this be a hybrid event? Because we're definitely going to see all of those remain as part of the total event program.
Hey, here's a really interesting one, and I don't know if you have any comment on it, but it's just kind of, I never thought of this before, but someone wrote in, do you see weddings as hybrid events in the future?
Yeah, so from the Cvent standpoint, I very much focus on B2B, so I'm going to answer this one completely personally. A hybrid wedding is an interesting thing. I suspect, yes, we will see some of that happen. Absolutely. Absolutely. You are going to have people that suddenly realize that they can take these B2B corporate event practices and apply them to their social events. And they're going to have those families in international countries or somewhere geographically that can't make it. I mean, I'll ask you this, Tyler. Have you ever FaceTimed a social event?
Yeah.
That was a hybrid event. Like, now we're just going to take this to a next level. But yes, I mean, even pre-pandemic, I know that there were times that you were FaceTiming for family and friends who couldn't make it for those vows, that you were FaceTiming family and friends that couldn't make it for that baptism, whatever it might be. We were doing it just on our phones through FaceTime. So now will we see it as part of the social production package? I'm sure we will.
I think of all the hassles, the seating hassles, you can't put this relative next to that one. All gone.
I know. I mean, let's be honest. We have already seen a hybrid wedding. The royal weddings have been hybrid.
Yeah. Well, and everyone, send in your questions, please. And then here's sort of I guess literally maybe the $1 million question, or at least the tens of $1,000 question. This seems expensive. How do you maximize budgets? And maybe I'll add, how do you, is there ways to monetize this through sponsorships and such?
Yep. both really good questions. And, that's where I go back to my hybrid formats, slide of every event doesn't have to be the Cadillac. But yes, when you are thinking about hybrid, budget is important. Um, I did an event or a session at Cvent Connect last week about determining your right hybrid event type. Stole that slide shamelessly from my presentation last week, but I had a client speaker join us, and what she had told me is that she probably spent about 20% more on her AV budget, but she was able to reach an audience that had never engaged with their in-person event. And her sponsors saw a return that they had never seen before as well because of that increased reach. So yes, it likely is going to cost more on your bottom line, but the ROI of your expanded reach will definitely hold. There are the additional sponsorship opportunities of now you don't have just your in-person signage to sell to your virtual sponsors. You have all of the virtual sponsorship opportunities. One thing that can be really valuable is when you have virtual content, you can play ad reels, similar to, again, TV, advertising reels, that video ad that you throw up there before a session, in the middle of the session, at the end of the session, is a very valuable sponsorship monetization option. Yeah, we would play ad reels in person, but they don't get the replay factor that you have with the virtual content and pre-recorded content and on demand. Plus, we were always selling sponsorship opportunities in the mobile app. Now you have, the mobile app that is also viewed by your whole virtual audience. So yes, that, you do have to make sure your management knows that if you want to do hybrid, if you're going to have to invest in the AV, but we're going to see the benefits in other ways through our expanded reach.
And I'm sure Cvent sees this a lot, because I know I've talked to them about it. But a lot of these facilities are investing in hybrid studios and space that's set aside just for hybrid meeting production.
Yep.
And then here's a good one that just came in. And and you probably don't have the answer to this because there's who could have it, but what is the current platform of choice for high quality, high production quality value? This person tried MS Teams Live and found there was a significant delay that sort of drove, it was crazy annoying. And I know just from experiencing like people maybe trying to like play music live together in multiple locations, there's even just a fraction of a second delay that it just doesn't, you just can't do it. So
yeah,
what are you seeing out there for platforms?
Absolutely still seeing that delay and trying to work it out. But Tyler, you softball that one to me. If you're asking what's the best platform for virtual events, I've got to say Cvent Attendee Hub. Cvent Attendee Hub is clearly the best choice for your virtual event platform. And we have all the tools and things that you need to stream. We even just announced last week at Connect or Cvent Studio to help with the whole behind the scenes production. So absolutely. But that delay is absolutely there. I think in our sessions, we were seeing about a 20-second delay. It's something you need to be aware of. It's something your speakers need to understand, and that you really need to choose your content and your programming, knowing that is a thing. Again, I'm going to go back to TV and sports. That delay is there as well. Have you ever tried? I know that when I have tried to watch a game, with family and friends in other locations, depending on which cable company you have, or are you on satellite, there's a delay. It is a thing. Like when you are broadcasting out, there is a delay, and I think that as broadcast technology, satellite technology continues to improve, that delay time will be reduced. Investing in high quality AV, knowing your Wi-Fi capacity, testing it is very key so that you know what your broadcast delay is and you can prepare your content for that. But the delay is a thing.
Yeah, I know, like having people over to watch, say, the Super Bowl, and I'll have one TV in one room that's on on an antenna, and then other ones on cable, and people are yelling because of a great play in the other room, before it happens in the other
Yes,
room.
exactly. So, we see that even in television production, that delay is a real thing.
And I've got to say too that, I mean, just getting back to CVent, I mean, you got to think, since you are in this business and know so much about it, and really started as facility listings and such, you guys have got to have a good handle on what people need for virtual meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely do. So, of course, the CVent technology, we were all about having our event platform for in-person events. Prior to the pandemic, we launched our virtual platform at CVent Attendee Hub during the pandemic, and now we're seeing full event programs, total event programs, virtual, hybrid, in person, run on our software. And like you said, we also have our CVent Supplier Network. And one of the other things we launched or announced last week at CVent Connect is our new vendor marketplace, which is going to be, our CVent Supplier Network helps you find your hotels. Now we're aggregating all the vendors that you need for virtual and hybrid into our vendor marketplace, where you're going to be able to submit RFPs and get bids back and help guide you through, like you said, who are all those vendors you need. And so we'll have those categories that you can say, what are the categories of vendors I'm looking for? So absolutely something that we're looking at and seeing that shift, and we want to bring to the market.
Excellent. And then do you see, just attendees sort of getting more familiar with this technology, and, sort of knowing how to interact with it, and sort of the barrier to participating in something like this getting lowered?
Yes. Well, so it's interesting because, yes, I think attendee expectations are elevated for sure. Attendees have experienced so many virtual events. I'm not sure that pre-pandemic anyone knew the difference between Zoom and a Microsoft Teams GoToMeeting on 24. Now, even your average everyday consumer who's not in the business understands that there are all of these different platforms and that they have so many different elements to them. So yeah, expectations are definitely changed. But I do think that as far as those expectations, people are starting to understand that different platforms have a place in a different experience, and different engagement elements have a place in different experiences. And it's also about setting those expectations ahead of time and knowing your audience. You need to make sure your audience knows that, hey, you're coming to an event today that is going to be a broadcast, it is going to be a stream, we're going to have chat turned on, but it's not going to be live Q&A. Because if they show up and they know that a live Q&A is possible, and they're going to be like, wait, why aren't we doing live Q&A? But well, that's because that's not what we set this content up to be. That I saw this in our event last week, that people were wanting to do live Q&A with our general session speakers, and I'm like, guys, did we ever do live Q&A with keynotes before?
Right.
No, we didn't. So, it was a funny example of expectations have changed because people know what's possible with the technology, but that doesn't mean we have to change what we're doing. There's a time and a place for all of these things, and deploying the right engagement, the right technology tools at the right time is still something to think about.
And I bet it will, you will evolve the in-person meetings too, as we
It
go on.
absolutely is going to evolve the in-person meetings. Yes.
Cool. So before we end the program today, any kind of general thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
General thoughts, it would be that, we are all, I think, still figuring this out together. Keep asking questions, keep engaging, keep pushing the boundaries, because that is how we all get better as an industry. And, I think that, what our CEO said last week, he said he thinks that we're entering into a golden age of events. And I echo that. I think we are entering into a golden age of events, and the events industry is going to be changed, but changed for the better.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw his keynote, and it was he was very bullish on the future, and it's nice to hear, especially during times like these.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
thank you, Julie. A great presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. As always, great to be here, Tyler.
And following today's webinar, you will be redirected to a short survey submitted by CVent. And upon completion of that survey, you'll be redirected to today's Webinar Club page. Each webinar has its own unique Webinar Club page where you can download today's presentation, view the webinar on demand, obtain today's CMP credit certificate, and more. The speakers have also provided some additional information on the topic. So you can check that out too on the Webinar Club page. So thanks again to our speaker, Julie, and to all of you for joining us for this webinar today. Have a great rest of the day, and we hope to see you again soon.